Let's talk about the Saturday Sabbath Story. Ho, 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 ho. Is the Saturday Sabbath Story just like Santa and the Easter Bunny? A lot of kids grew up believing in Santa and the Easter Bunny. Only to find out later, Santa and the Easter Bunny are only myths. Later, many of those same kids perpetuated these myths on their kids, but some of us didn't. We learned the truth about Christmas and Easter. Both Christmas and Easter are pagan, introduced into the church by Emperor Constantine to unify the Roman Empire. So we stop polluting our worship of the true God by getting this pagan worship out of our lives. Back then, we were probably worshiping on Sunday until we found out Sunday was named the first day of the week and was made the day of rest in honor of Sol Invictus, the official sun god of the Roman Empire, by the sun worshiper Constantine the Great in 321 AD. We can all agree that the Sabbath is very important because it is the fourth commandment. The Sabbath is on day 7. That is undisputable from Scripture. While we can agree on all of that, then we come to the Saturday Sabbath Story. This is where the Saturday Sabbath Story begins. We are told that Saturday is the 7th day of creation week. In this chart, which is representative of what you see on this, we have day 1 through 7 of the creative days that we find in the book of Genesis. These are labeled with the days of the week, starting with Sunday as the first day and Saturday as the 7th day, the day of rest. This chart and this idea, the Sabbath story, is that Saturday is the 7th day of creation week. When we were told these things, we may have asked, the Scripture says the 7th day, but the day is never named in Scripture as Saturday. So how do we know Saturday is the 7th day of creation week? And we were told Saturday has always been the 7th day in an unbroken chain all the way back to creation. We asked, surely the calendar has changed in so long a time. Saturday and the other days could have been switched around. And we were told Saturday has always been the 7th day. There is no record in history of that ever changing. then we may have said, no offense, but that is not really proof. Do we have any real proof that Saturday is the seventh day of creation week? And we were told the Jews have always observed Sabbath on Saturday. That should be all the proof you need. And we said, all right then, Saturday it is. And we were told, yes, now you know the right day, Saturday, to keep the Sabbath. That is the Saturday Sabbath story. Isn't that pretty much how the story goes? Isn't that pretty much how you heard it? What is wrong with the Saturday Sabbath story? Everything. All of the answers are wrong. First, our entire calendar system is Roman. The weekday names define the Roman week. They do not define the creation week of the Scriptures. Besides that, the days were changed. Have you ever wondered how the whole Western world got on the same calendar? Julius Caesar invented the Julian calendar in 45 BC, half a century before Messiah was ever born. Julius Caesar needed a system to get everyone in his empire, essentially the whole Western world, on the same schedule for taxing purposes. So he invented the Julian calendar with the help of certain experts, of course, including Cleopatra. So the Roman Julian calendar was established. But when it was established with an 8-day week. Here you see Roman Julian fasty calendars that have been found that show us that at that time, Rome had an 8-day week. So when we read in Scripture something like Mark 16:2, and very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came into the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. This is understood by many to be Sunday. However, the Roman 8-day week was then in force. The 7-day Roman week was not invented for another 100 years, at least. The Roman weekdays, such as Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, are not actually in the Scriptures at all. That is simply read back into the Scriptures because we do have a 7-day week, and we just assume it's always been the same. Here is the Roman fasty calendar that was in use by the Romans from the 1st century BC to the 3rd century AD, and that was used throughout the empire to keep everyone on the same schedule, especially for taxation. Now let's look and see how this calendar was to be read. Across the top, we see the 12-month names defining each column. And these are January through December, the same month names, of course, that we follow today. Back then, there was no J, so in January, it had an I. Otherwise, these are essentially the same names. Now look at the bottom of each column. In Roman numerals, it shows us the number of days in that particular month in that particular column. Down along the left side of the calendar, we see Roman numerals amounting to 1 through 31. These are the days of the month, and they define the days in the rows across the calendar. So it's very easy to read this calendar, even though at first it looks a little strange. Now we look at the Roman 8-day week. We notice that there are columns for the weekdays for each month. And the weekdays are defined for us by the letters A through H. As you look at the calendar, you will see how these weekdays recur through the month and through all the months in a cycle, just like the Roman weeks do now, except that those Roman weeks were 8 days, not 7 days, and they were not known by the names that later came to define the 7-day week. The Roman fasting calendar mixed up the days of the week before the Roman Saturday was ever invented. Notice how this works. If we assign the weekdays of the 7-day week to the weeks of the fasting calendar, with Sunday as the first day of the week, defining letter A, the first day of the fasting calendar, then Saturday falls on letter G. However, in the next week, the second week, it will fall on letter F. And in the third week, it will fall on letter E, and so on, around and around and around through centuries of time. Is this the way to keep the fourth commandment? Is this an unbroken chain of Saturday being the seventh day all the way back to creation? Here, though, it gets even worse. It's astrology that determines the order of the weekdays, not the scriptures. Notice this quote on Saturday in Wikipedia. Between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD, the Roman Empire gradually replaced the 8-day Roman nundinal cycle with the 7-day week. The astrological order of the days was explained by Vettius Valens and Dio Cassius. According to these authors, it was a principle of astrology that the days are named for the planets, which were in turn named for the deities. Let that sink in. It is not the days of creation that define the order of the Roman week. It is astrology and the order of the Roman gods. Here's a stick calendar found in a Roman bath, and it shows Saturn's day as the first day of a 7-day week. I wonder, when Saturday was the first day of the week, was it still the Sabbath? Is Saturn's day the Sabbath day? Really? Would you expect the days assigned by false gods to harmonize with the creation days? Really? So how did Saturn's day go from the first day to the 7th day of the Roman 7-day week. Constantine again. As we know, Constantine was a big sun worshiper. When Constantine made Sunday the first day of the week, to honor the sun god, of course, Saturn got bumped to number 7. And Saturn's day became the 7th day of the Roman week. Oh, I know what you might be thinking. Couldn't the Roman week and creation week just be the same because it's more convenient? If you wouldn't celebrate Christmas because it is really a celebration of the pagan god Saturn, then why would you try to celebrate the Sabbath on Saturn's day? Maybe you just didn't know. Wait a minute, you might be thinking. Maybe there is still one last hope left for the Saturday Sabbath story. You might ask, okay, all that stuff about the days of the week never changing is bunk. But we've still got this, don't we? Remember this? The Jews have always observed Sabbath on Saturday. That should be all the proof you need. Actually, it is only Christian and Messianic Saturday Sabbatarians that say this. The Jews themselves make no such claim. Consider what the Jews themselves say about how they have changed the day of Sabbath observance. This is from the Jewish Encyclopedia, an authoritative source of information about everything Jewish. In their article on festivals, indications are not wanting that at first the new moon festival was not counted among the 7 days of the week. But after 7 times 4, 28 days had elapsed. 1 or 2 days were intercalated as new moon days, whereupon a new cycle of 4 weeks began, so that the Sabbath was a movable festival. Later, the week and the Sabbath became fixed. Do you understand what they're saying? They say the Sabbath began attached to the phases of the moon, not as a continual 7-day cycle. The Sabbath was at the end of each 7-day period in the month. At the end of the month, there were a couple of days of the new moon festival, and the new month started again, and then the days started counting again towards the Sabbath. And as they say, it was only later that the week and the Sabbath became fixed. Under the heading of week in the Jewish Encyclopedia, connection with lunar phases. Yes, it has a heading that says that. It says this: the week of 7 days was connected with the lunar month, of which it is approximately a fourth. The quadripartite division of the month was evidently in use among the Hebrews. This Jewish source is not telling us that they have been celebrating the Sabbath on Saturday all the way back to creation. They're telling us exactly the opposite, that at one time, the Sabbath was directly connected to the lunar month. Here's another quote from the Jewish Encyclopedia under changing the calendar. Declaring the new month by observation of the new moon. This is how the calendar in the scripture works. There's observation of the moon at the dark of the moon, waiting for the new moon to come out, the first sliver of the new moon. And this is how the calendar operated throughout biblical history. And the Sabbath was then set according to the days of the new month. The quote goes on here. It says, in the time of Hillel II, that is the 4th century AD, the Romans prohibited this practice. Hillel too was therefore forced to institute his fixed calendar. What this is telling us is because of Roman persecution, the Jews were forced to make a fixed calendar, to abandon the calendar of the Scriptures, and of course, to accept the Roman 7-day week. And they have been keeping Sabbath on the 7th day of the Roman week ever since. It's not only the Jews themselves that give us this testimony. Early church fathers also say that the Sabbath was attached to the phases of the moon in New Testament times and in the early centuries. We have here Clement of Alexandria, and he was writing about the end of the 2nd century. Notice what he said. In periods of 7 days, the moon undergoes its changes. In the first week, she becomes half moon. In the second week, full moon. In the third week, in her wane, again half moon. And in the fourth week, she disappears. Notice how the week, now he's talking about biblical weeks of 7 days, are tied directly to the phases of the moon. And this is more than a century after Messiah. In another place, this same Clement of Alexandria, near the end of the 2nd century, tells us this about the Jews. If the moon be not visible, they do not hold the Sabbath, which is called the first. According to the biblical calendar, first of all, to identify the new month, you need to see the new moon. Then you can start counting the days of the month to set the Sabbath. Until that happens, you don't know what day that's going to be, because the dark of the moon can last up to 3 days. That's what was going on. More than a century after Messiah, that's how the biblical calendar worked until it was changed in the 4th century.
Ho, 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 ho.
So, the Saturday Sabbath story is just like Santa and the Easter Bunny. What do we do about it? The Sabbath is the 4th commandment, and it is important for us to keep it. And the Sabbath is on day 7. But that's not Saturday. That is day 7 of the lunar month. The set feasts of Yahweh of Leviticus 23 are fixed days on the lunar month. If you look at Leviticus 23, you'll see that Sabbath is included as one of these fixed days. Notice the first 3 verses of Leviticus 23. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, and tell them, the set feasts of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my set feasts." And then it starts listing them. Notice the first one it lists. 6 days shall work be done. But on the 7th day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no kind of work. It is a Sabbath to Yahweh in all your dwellings. From this point, it goes on and it lists all the rest of the days that are set according to the lunar month. Why would this day be any different from the rest? Granted, this seems strange to people who have always been on the Roman time system, since it includes absolutely no weeks of the type later invented by the Romans. However, the Hebrew lunar system happens to be the time system that Yahweh instituted for Israel and used to set up all his set feasts, including the Sabbath. Now you know. Got questions? The research on this has been done, and this is the right time for the remnant. I've been living on this time, holy time, for almost 2 decades. I have a practical knowledge of living on this, as well as a scriptural understanding of holy time. You'll find this in my book. I know you have questions. Read the book. Read the whole book, and you'll find your questions are answered there. The Saturday Sabbath story is just like Santa and the Easter Bunny, and it's time to clean house. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.